Hi there! So this is going to be my reflection for the learning artifact, and this is my lesson plan called Concessions, not snack kiosks, but just as delicious. So in this lesson plan, we're going to be talking about conceding paragraphs and how to make concessions in your own writing, and this is something really important for student writing that I am personally very passionate about. So I'm super excited to walk you through this lesson plan. Basically, our objective, I'll summarize for you, but students will be able to actively follow along the VoiceThread memo, and when they finish, define what a literary concession is and why it's crucial for their own writing. And then after that, they'll be able to do this in their own writing. I said that much more nicely in there, but they'll be able to do it, and we can see it later in their work. So the materials you need 4 things, maybe 3, depending on how you're presenting it, but you definitely need this VoiceThread memo, which I have up here. So that's what you're going to need. If we go back, we need the Google Slides in case you wanted to format anything. So here was the original Google Slides doc that I did the VoiceThread from. And then you need your concession activity, which is going to be on Elms for them to do. So I have it here. It's called the Art of Conceding Activity. And this one, for the way we did it in our class, we did as an asynchronous classwork assignment. So students had to complete it on our day of class online by themselves, so I wasn't there to talk them through it or do anything like that. But in this lesson, I've formatted it for a synchronous class, so you can interact with students. If you want to do face-to-face, there are other little things you should tweak, but keep in mind this is for a synchronous online class. So considering we're doing that, we need the collaborative Google Docs, but I will not pull them up for this purpose. All right, so the outline of this lesson plan, I just said this little note about how to fix it. So the intro, we're going to welcome students, say hello, announce our agenda. We're going to do a brief warm-up where we ask them to tell the difference between giving in and compromising, which are 2 very different things that I think they'll have some fun going back and forth on what they actually mean. And then before we send them off, we're going to tell them what they're doing so they don't just get lost in VoiceThread land. So first, they're going to watch the brief VoiceThread about concession, a new term. And after they do that, they'll move on to the writing assignment, and make sure you let them know that the instructions on how to do this writing assignment will be released within the VoiceThread, so they actually have to watch it in order to understand. After that, we direct them to the weekly to-do list where they find the VoiceThread link and the activity, so off they go. I formatted about 10 to 12 minutes for students to watch the VoiceThread. The VoiceThread is, I think, in entirety close to 8 minutes long, so this should give them more than enough time to watch it and watch parts of it again if they need to. So in these 10 to 12 minutes that you let them go off and do their own thing and listen, you should be around in case anyone's having trouble getting it to work or has any questions or cannot find the activity that's mentioned at the end of it. So just stick around and wait for them if they need help. And after that's done, we're moving on to our main writing portion, which I'm giving 20 to 30 minutes for if we were doing a synchronous class. So after they watch the VoiceThread, there's directions on how to get to the next writing activity in Elms. So they should be getting there. So make sure everyone is there, can find the assignment. And if they're lost on how to do it, direct them back to like the 5:45-minute mark on the VoiceThread and have them listen through the end, because that'll give them all the instructions. And if we're doing it in class synchronously, make sure they do it in their Google Docs so you can see what they're doing and you know you're not just losing a half hour and then they're going to eat lunch or something. So that's what I'm saying. If you're doing it synchronous, make sure they're in their Google Docs. Otherwise, they're just handing an assignment on Elms, so you'll know if they did it, if they submitted it or not. And if you're doing it in person, obviously you can watch them write. So make sure you format accordingly. And 20 to 30 minutes for them to write, and you can be available for student questions and comments, but don't really be too active or interfering. This is their own writing time and they're trying something new, so it might be a little scary for them, so don't really, if you see something wrong, I know I have an inclination to comment on things like, oh, maybe change this, but I'm going to refrain in this thing. So after 20 to 25 minutes, bring back students to the whole group and move into your wrap-up and closing. This is a pretty laid-back lesson plan for the instructor and TA. It's a lot of independent work for students. So we're going to do a little wrap-up discussion. So there are a few questions you can lead with, and I've made these as an example. Was it easy or challenging to write a concession? What were you hesitant about when writing? Do you think this actually helps your own argument? Are there certain sources or arguments that are easier to concede with others? And then finally, how can this be applied to real life outside of English 101? Because they have friends and family too that they probably have argued with, and concession is super important for all things in real life too. And like any discussion, listen to feedback, continue it, chime in when necessary, and then when this kind of dies down, make sure, this is probably so crucial, inform your students that they should actively be looking to use these concession paragraphs in their CAP, which in our case was due very soon. So I, as a TA, would say, like, look, I'm going to be on the lookout for these in your final products, and I know they're not probably going to be perfect. This is your first time trying, but I want to see an attempt, and this activity was practice, so it should be a little bit better in your final draft, but I want to see you trying to do this. And then after that, time is up, you can transition into your next activity for the day. All done. So that's not too much work to do. Let's see, the timestamp total is probably less than 50 minutes, so definitely doesn't need to be an entire class period, especially if you're doing a 75-minute block. All good. I have a little method of assessing the objectives, so we can say you can immediately see if they do it or not in their collaborative Google Docs or in person or just in the ELMS assignment that they complete. If they were able to format some sort of paragraph, and I said, signs that this initially worked, there's 3 different things to look for in these paragraphs, so if they have 3 or even like 2.5, then they're on a good start. But then after the lesson plan, when they turn in their CAP papers, you can really see if they've attempted concession for real. And I said the final CAP should have a powerful and polished concession paragraph or paragraphs that accomplishes all the points in the VoiceThread. So something to look for if they can do it. Awesome. So we did this in our own class. They did it, like I said, as an asynchronous classwork assignment. So I've gone through them and read them, and some of them were obviously a lot better than others, but that's to be expected. Some of them have interesting sources that they go back and forth with, but you can see one of the hardest things for students to accomplish in these are transitioning back into their own argument. It seems like kind of awkward for them to try this when they're talking about how important other arguments are and then getting back to their own. So there's a balance between that I'm hoping I'll see in the final CAPs. But overall, I really enjoyed doing a concession VoiceThread. That was so fun for me, and I was able to use my own writing as an example, so it was great. And I'm just super happy that we've talked about something so important to writing, because mature professional academic writing isn't always about your own argument, which is so important to learn. All right, thanks for listening. I hope this lesson plan made sense, and I'm excited to see if anyone wants to format it for their own class. Thanks.